Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. I'm excited to be back hosting the podcast. It feels like I have not hosted in a really long time, but for those of you who have missed me, you're in luck. I'm going to be here 2 weeks in a row. And for those of you who are saying, well, no big deal, Beth or another host, well, you're stuck with me for 2 weeks in a row. Couple of really quick things because we have a packed show today. Don't forget to review us on Apple Podcasts. It makes it easier for others to find us. That's pretty much it. We would love it. We'd love your 5-star review if you could give it to us. Today, we're going to be talking about pathways to 2 careers that we talk to students about quite a bit. One is actually architecture, and the other is teaching. And we certainly need more teachers in the world, and I'm sure we need plenty of architects. So we've got some information on how you can achieve both of those goals. But before we get to that, we're going to be talking about financial independence for teenagers. Always top of mind for me as someone with a 19-year-old at home, well, not at home, but at college and sometimes at home. And joining me for that is Chrissy Foran, who is a former financial aid officer at both Gonzaga and Washington State Universities. Hi, Chrissy.
Good morning.
Well, all right. It's morning for you, middle of the day for
That's
me.
true.
Yeah, and also it's 80 degrees for you and
Yes.
42 degrees for me. So
I'm glad I'm you today, Beth.
I'm a little jealous. You should be. All right. So I think a common conversation that parents have with other parents, with each other, questions we get related to this is just, teenagers not necessarily understanding how hard you have to work to earn the money to pay for things. And so, a question that will come up is, how do we teach them the value of a dollar? And I would love to hear any thoughts you have on achieving that goal, because certainly the better we are able to prepare our students for that piece of things, the better able they're going to be to support themselves, which is certainly my goal as a parent.
Yeah, I mean, it is this day and age, I don't have teenagers, which I'm thankful for at this point based on how people pay for things, but I get this all the time on phone calls. We talk with families and parents that they don't understand how their kids don't appreciate the money that's being spent. They don't know how much money is being spent. I mean, we're using our phones, we're using apps, we're buying things online. I mean, we're having clothes and dinner and anything you can think of delivered to your door, literally within just a click of a button on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really easy to understand that teens don't really understand the value of a dollar at this point. One of the things, and this might sound a little weird, but one of the things you can really do to kind of quickly talk to your kids about or teach them about the value of a dollar is to start using cash. So, I know teens all have phones, but don't let them pay for things with an app. Don't let them buy things on Amazon or, order dinner through those delivery apps. Just forget the apps for a bit, even just a few months. If you're giving them allowance, give them a cash allowance. Or if they have a part-time job, have them cash their paychecks. Have them deal in cash for a little bit when they're purchasing food or gifts or gas, if they're going out with friends. Once they're out of cash, so basically this is how much cash they get for the month or the week, whatever you do with them. Once they're out of that cash, they're not able to buy anymore until they get the next round of cash. Mm-hmm. So you have to have those discussions with them on, what are you going to use this to buy? If you're going to save something, if you're trying to buy something, you want to save up for it. Well, how many weeks of allowance is it going to take for you to save that up? Kind of help them decide what their priorities are, but do it on a cash basis for a while so that they get the idea of, oh my gosh, so this really does cost this much. I can't just click a button and I don't really know how much it's costing or what account it's coming out of from my parents or that sort of thing. So I think cash can really wake them up and know that it's their hard-earned money that they're spending. Another thing you can do if you're comfortable, some parents aren't, but if you're comfortable sharing your finances with your kids, you can really sit down with them and show them your monthly bills. Show them what your mortgage is, show them how much your electricity bill is, that cell phone bill that the family's using, and then show them the money you have coming in, saying, this is how much we have, this is how much we pay out each month. If you have a budget, if you're on a spending plan, if you guys are saving as a family for trips or, buying a house or buying your teenager a car, show them the plan of how much you're putting away each month, how long that's going to take you to save up. I mean, it can help them understand that how you as a family work so hard to pay for your family's life. And a lot of parents aren't comfortable with that. So I think that other cash option works really well. It just making them work for things rather than just saying, here's, $5 here, here's $20 here. Well, here's your allowance for the week. And once you spend that, you don't get any more until you get the next allowance. So it really kind of teaches them to think about what they want, how soon they can get it. And if they're dead, they don't have anything left to buy. So I think those two options can work really well, just kind of helping them understand that.
Yeah, and I would just put a plug in to families if you're thinking you're not comfortable, and I'm sure there's lots of reasons why families aren't comfortable.
Yeah,
Maybe you should get more comfortable with it, right?
yeah,
Because talking about money, there's such a stigma around it. And
hmm
how many times, and you certainly have these conversations much more frequently than I do, Chrissy, but how many times do we have students getting into college, and it's at that point when the student is into their dream school, not something I love, like the whole concept
right,
of. And now the parent is saying to us, I can't afford this, but I
yeah,
can't tell my teenager that because they don't know that I can't afford it. And I mean, that is to me a little mind blowing. You need to be, maybe you don't need to let them in on every facet of your
right,
financial picture, but you can certainly let them know, here's what's reasonable. But I think the other problem is that a lot of times parents aren't thinking about what's reasonable, what they can afford
right.
before the kid goes through the process. Anyway, not our topic for today. We've certainly covered this
That's a
in
whole
the
nother day.
past, so I'm not going to get us completely off topic. Teaching teens to budget, you mentioned, if parents have a budget. And actually, when you were talking about going in cash, I was reading an article earlier this week about a woman who is kind of in a financial, I don't think she's claiming to be an expert. What she is, she's on um, social media talking about how she went from being in debt and living paycheck to paycheck to making money actually doing this advice. And one of the things that she did was she had the envelope system, which is something
Yeah,
actually that my parents used for a little while anyway when I was younger, which speaks directly to your cash piece, where you have a budget and you put in the cash for each idea, each element of the budget. It each has a separate envelope, and you
mhm.
work exclusively from those envelopes. That could work if you're using the cash thing with your kid. Any other advice for helping teenagers to budget, create a budget, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and the cash, the envelope thing is a really great thing because again, it's very visual, it's very physical. Kids have their hands on the cash. You have one for, savings. I'm saving up for a video game or a used car. I'm saving up for college. You have one for your own kind of immediate, what do I need to buy this week? I want some new jeans or something. And then you have some, if they actually do have cell phone bills that they pay or, gas that they have to pay. So the envelope cash part works really well for budgeting, but parents need to remember that nobody is really teaching their kids about financing and budgeting. There's a lot of schools still that are not teaching any of this in high school. So it really is up to the families to have these conversations as hard as they can be. But again, in terms of teaching teens how to budget, whether, again, if they get an allowance from you, if they have a part-time job, it's just really important to teach them how to use that money wisely. And I talk to a lot of kids on the phone, with their parents that say, yeah, I get $50 a week or I get $20 a week. And I say, well, what are you using that for? I don't know, just kind of whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of good to kind of rein them in and say, okay, do you have expenses? Am I going to make my child pay for their school clothes? Am I going to make them pay for entertainment that they're going out with their friends? Are they paying for gas if they're able to drive? So if they have expenses, figure out how much do they have, sit down with them, and you can do a spreadsheet if that works. If the envelope method sounds not fun or something they wouldn't get into, there's tons of apps that are free that you can use for budgeting, keeping track of your money. But you really want to talk about, what do you want to save for? Are there things in the future that you want to save for, whether it's in the next month, whether it's in the next 5 years, whether it's, I want to buy a car in 5 years, I want to help pay for my own college. So what are the things in the future they want to purchase? What are the things that they need to pay for immediately? And then just, that fun money. So, I mean, it is good to take a little percentage of that just for yourself, just for fun, not for saving for something big, but hey, I just am going to go out to dinner with my buddies. So getting your child used to the idea of putting some aside for saving. Maybe you are somebody that donates to charity, and you want to start your child on that. Have an envelope for, putting a little bit, even a couple of dollars away for charity. So that can be a really big step towards getting a more financially secure future. So teaching them how to track what they're spending, maybe just have them, just for the first month or two, just track what they do spend. So
Yeah.
before you get them on a spending plan, just say, I want you to write down everything you've spent your money on, or go back through if they have a bank account. What did you spend it on? And then kind of have that conversation from there of, are these things that you want? Are these things that you need? So teaching the difference between needs and wants is huge, even in the adult world of budgeting. And
Yeah.
do I really need this? Is this a necessity, or is this something I want? And do I have to have it? Can I live without it? Is this better for me to put that money towards my larger goal? So I think, there's a lot of different ways that you can, and different apps you can do to teach budgeting and that sort of thing, but it's whatever you're comfortable with. So, there's Apple Pay, teens can, well, they can't really use PayPal and Venmo at this point, but there's a lot of different ways you can track kind of what they're spending and kind of have a little bit of control over that.
And in terms of establishing credit, how important is that for teenagers? Because you talked about, saving money to buy a car, or, saving money for something longer term. And I'm thinking, will they save enough so that they could just buy that car outright? Should they buy it with cash? Should they finance it? How important is it to start establishing that path?
Yeah, I mean, most people will tell you that anytime you can save up for something and pay for it in full without having to borrow for it is a really good thing. So you're not paying interest on the thing that you're trying to buy, like a used car or, loans, things like that. But the main thing is that credit really is an essential part of an adult life. There are people that live without credit. They never borrow. They pay for everything in cash. I don't know that that's the norm. That's great if you can do that. But the thing is once your child grows up, when they get ready to rent an apartment, whether they're in college, whether they're just graduating, or if they buy a car, if they're going to take out a mortgage, they're going to get their own cell phone bills, they have to have a credit history. I mean, employers check credit now for getting jobs. So, with a good credit history, they can get better interest rates. They can maybe get better jobs. They have more favorable terms. It can save them thousands of dollars over their lifetime. So I think it's important to start the process of establishing credit. So as a parent of a high school, or if you have a college student, you want to make sure they understand the value of having good credit first. These are the things that it's not just, I want to buy a house or a car. They're checking credit for cell phones. They're checking credit for jobs, like I said. So it's important that you establish credit, but that you also teach them how to use that wisely and not max out a credit card and then go, oh, I just, went to Target and Nordstrom and now I don't have any money left on my credit card. So teaching the value of credit, I think, is important for later in life, kind of starting to build that credit, telling them how to use it wisely, making sure they're checking at least right now, check your credit score once a year. Make sure no one else is using your credit. Cybersecurity is a huge thing. Identity theft is a huge thing. So even if you're a parent going, no, I'm not getting my child a credit card, I'm not doing that right now. That's great. That's your choice. But have them log into a credit reporting agency at least once a year and just check their credit, make sure no one else has stolen it. So
any other ways to establish credit? I'm sorry, I'm talking over you. Beyond just getting a credit card, or you could get a credit card with a really low limit, correct? That your student could get used to, or your child could get used to paying off on a monthly basis. But any other ways to establish credit as a teenager than beyond just having a credit card?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that before they start getting into the credit card, to make sure that you're opening like a checking account for your child or your teen in the first place. Practice a spending plan, making sure they have a fixed amount each month, that they understand they have to live within that amount so that they're budgeting. You can do a prepaid credit card that can help with that, since that does have a set limit that they can't go over. So before you actually get an actual credit card, maybe practice with some of those kinds of things that they don't affect credit, to begin with, but it teaches them. Once you know that they're responsible and they've kind of proven that, there's a couple of options. You can add them as an authorized user on your own credit card. So that way you can monitor what they use, what they spend it on, how often they're using it, how much money you're letting them spend. So especially if your child's still in high school, that's a really ideal option, because it can help them establish a credit history while they're living with you. And then you have a little more control over what they're doing with it and how they're spending it. Another option, you can open a joint secured credit card. So because secured credit cards, they have an initial deposit that kind of serves as a credit limit. Again, you're kind of limiting the credit available on the card for them and helping them prevent overspending. So, you have to really check into it, talk with your lender to see, kind of what some options are. But student loans. Sometimes you can borrow, when they get into the point of getting into college, they can borrow student loans. And even though that's not a credit-based loan, it does help with credit in the end when they're paying them back.
Got it.
So there are a couple of different things, but it's important to make sure they can handle it before you sign them up for anything.
Yep. I love that. It's great advice. And as someone who misused a credit card when she was in college that she got
So did
day
I.
one,
Right
I
on
like-
campus, they just give them out.
they do. Yes. I like the idea of kind of a little bit more of an on-ramp for it.
Yeah.
So
Start a little slowly.
exactly. Chrissy, thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate this. I think really some really helpful insight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about pathways to architecture. So don't go away.